brothers and soil sisters. I hope you all are ready for this, or should I say, I hope you all grabbed your balls because it's cannon season. Today is Wednesday, and of course, we are starting our canning series. So I hope you guys are ready. Let's see. I want to make sure I got this all right. Now I want to be on that island. We see, so let me explain first so people are not so confused. And I'm going to turn this music off. Um, Today we are canning and preserving 101. I turned the music off because I'm not sure how loud it is, even though I think it was good. I want to stay focused. Thank you all for being here. Today we are streaming from Black's Tropical to we have Facebook going on. We are streaming to Grace and Fire today. We are streaming to Kettle Kitchen because these are my beautiful and handsome co-hosts. So we have, I see, the Anlin Show over on Grace and Fire paying in, Lion Crest. So y'all, what I'm not gonna do is get caught up in the chat. What's poppin' popcorn? Lavender for luck. I appreciate you all. Miss Cheryl. So y'all, it's all about canning. I hope y'all have y'all questions ready because I'm gonna bring in my guests. So what we are gonna do is we gonna stay respectful today. We gonna ask questions about canning because I want you all to learn to can the safe and proper way. Safe and proper. Let's not cut corners. Let's not sugarcoat anything. Let's just do it right. So let me bring in my guests. We have Miss Glenda from Grace and Fire.
Hello.
What's up, Soil Sister?
Hey.
We have Tony
Hi.
from Kitchen, our amazing Soil brother. So we have one more guest
Hello.
coming. She'll be here. So I'm gonna start with Miss Glenda. Let us know, who are you? What are you here to talk about today?
Well, my name is Glenda, and I have been canning for 11 years. I water bath can and I pressure can. And yeah, so if you have any questions about either of those, be sure to ask. I believe in using books and also recipes from that are tried and true from the experts. So just ask away. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I also grow a lot of my food, but I also believe that if you don't have the food that you grow, that it's okay to go and purchase it from like a local you put pick or maybe even your grocery stores if you can find it on sale. Um, Definitely don't feel that you have to have a garden to can. So I want to make sure that it's not just for home gardeners; it's for anybody who wants to learn to can. So you can do this right here, right now. So, and in fact, that's how I started. I didn't have a garden, and this pot right here is my original canner from 11 years ago. And I went to a local U-Pick farm and I canned jam. So right at my mother's house. So yeah, you don't have to have a garden to start canning. So
Right.
but I do have a garden now. So yeah.
Good. Congratulations. All right. Thank you, Soil Sister. So let's move on to Kettle Kitchen.
How are you guys today? So my channel is Kettle Kitchen, obviously, and what I try to do, I got 4 lines that I follow on my channel. One is be smart. Always be smart about what you're doing. Make sure you're following guidelines, recipes that are tested. Um, Make sure you're not going to do something that's going to harm your family. The next one is think ahead. You always got to be thinking ahead of the game instead of behind the game. That's a transition that I've went through. I've had to learn. Um, I had to make sure that what I'm putting up as far as canned goods was something that I was 2 to 3 months ahead in the game, if that makes any sense. Then I also cook with ease. I mean, it make it as simple as possible. It doesn't have to be a long, drawn out process. There are different ways, and we were talking about it in prior to the start. Just because I do it one way doesn't mean you can't do it another way, but theoretically, it's an easy process. And then uh, preserve. I mean, you got to preserve your food. You got to get it so you are at a point where you and your family can make it through theoretically anything from a 3 month to a year and a half process. So that's what my channel's about. That's what I try to promote, and I'm on a journey. I will tell you that.
All right. Sounds good. So, as you all know, I am Sherry from Black's Tropical Homestead. I would love it if y'all would hit the thumbs up for myself, Kettle Kitchen, or Grace and Fire, wherever you are tuning in from. We appreciate you. And we have one more soil sister to add in. This is my girl. This is
Ooh.
Hi.
my
Hello.
strawberry cheese swirl, my strawberry cheesecake swirl sister. What's
Hello.
up, Leanne at Middle Night Farmhouse? So, introduce yourself.
Well, I'm Leanne from Mennonite Farmhouse, and I do cooking and baking from scratch, canning and dehydrating videos on my channel. And I started canning waist high at my mom's hips, learning how to do green beans and corn. We would do 100 quart a year of those. We would do 100 quart of peaches and sour cherries, and occasionally some sausage. Wouldn't recommend that, but so, and we didn't have air conditioning back in that day. So that was my first memory of canning. So now I'm married, and the invention of YouTube and has inspired me to can everything in sight. So now I'm on YouTube trying to preach food safety and canning safety, and that's why we're here today.
All right. So, y'all, if you have any questions, make sure you put your questions in all caps. I think that's what we can probably pick up on better if they're all in all caps. So, if y'all are ready, I have questions, or who want to start first, or where do we want to start?
Well, I'll start. So the first thing I would
You're the
recommend,
directors. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I'll start with getting a book. The very first thing I would I would purchase is get this book, which is the USDA's Complete Guide to Home Canning, and then also I would be purchasing a fall book within the last 10 years and start taking a look through these books and seeing what you're interested in recipe wise. This is the kickoff for canning season. So also go to the store now and start purchasing your jars because they will be flying off the shelves. So make sure that if you do not own jars, start stocking up on that kind of thing. But think about the things that you want to have on your pantry. And that way you can make a list of the ingredients that you need, the recipes that you're interested in. Read the recipes from front to back so you have an understanding. And then also you're going to need to purchase canners. Are you going to want to water bath can, or are you going to pressure can, or are you going to do both? You want to be thinking about that. So yeah, so that's where I would start. So yeah, and I see that there's a question
Yes.
from. Okay, does anyone have an old-fashioned pickling recipe? Oh, pickling? I'm wondering if that means pickling.
I think it's a type of pepper.
Oh, is it? Oh, is
That's
that
what I'm
that
thinking.
is?
I'm
Okay.
thinking that's what it is.
Okay, I'll let you answer that one, Leanne.
Well, if she's saying old fashioned meaning grandmother's recipe, we're not doing that. because that's not a tried true recipe from the USDA. So what you want to do is Glenda's going to show you that book and find the recipe in there. And it's basically going to be vinegar and sugar and your pickling spices. I'm starting to think I don't need the spices because I might not like this, the celery seed and mustard seed that goes into most pickling recipes. So I'm going to try that this year or use that.
Yeah.
So that's what I would do for that question.
Yeah.
And there's
Or
another question.
there was one from the official Ann Lynn show.
Ah,
I saw that one. Let's see here. How long do most foods last when canning? So, if you're using a ball jar lid, they are recommending 18 months. And I'm going to pull that up close. Seals up to 18 months. I don't know if it's going to come across.
There's a
But-
glare.
Yeah, sorry. It says, okay, so it says seals up to 18 months is what they're saying. That's how long that they're guaranteeing these jars lids are going to last for 18 months. But once it's sealed, you're basically going to be losing the color of it. You're not going to lose the quality of it. As long as you follow that recipe to a T when you have canned it, you can continue to eat it. But I wouldn't eat something from 10 years ago, but
And the nutritional value will go down as well.
yes,
Right.
right.
okay.
But try to, whenever you're canning foods, um, you want to always be rotating your foods. So by date. So, your first in is your first out. So always be rotating. So that way you're eating your older stuff first.
An inventory sheet helps to do that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
journaling.
Yes.
Because the first month I was married, my husband decided to plant 10 acres of sweet corn that year. So, growing up, I was canning 10 or 100 quarts of corn. So that's what I did. I canned 100 quarts of sweet corn my first month of being married. And guess how many quarts are still down in the basement? I'm finding them slowly unsealing. So, not to go full in hard to the wall because, you're not going to eat 100 quarts of corn in 1 year or even 6.
Yeah, that's a lot. So I see another question. Where did you purchase such? Oh, as a matter of fact, I had a question up there. I just lost it. Where did you purchase such large books?
Amazon has them.
Yeah. I was pausing because Grace was the one that, or Glenn was the one that booked.
So I got this one. I agree with Leanne. Amazon. This actually I got for Christmas. So I don't know where. A bookstore, I think, is where this particular one came from. This one, Tony. Tony, where'd you get the? I
Yep.
won this from Tony. Where'd you get
So
this from?
so this book I generally purchase on a regular basis for whatever I'm doing through Amazon. Costs $14 and it's shipped right to your house. So
Yeah. So, and then you can also find this online through the USDA's website, and it's free.
Yep.
Also, Fresh Preserving, which is Ball, is online, and that's free. I am going to show this book, but the reason I'm going to show this is that I'm going to say this with this caveat that if you use this book, you need to use this product only, okay? But if you are having to use low sugar, Pomona's pectin, if you're diabetic, this is what I'm using. But you must use Pomona's pectin only. This is their brand. Don't be playing around using another pectin or switching this recipe up. This is Pomona's pectin only. But I got this on Amazon, and I'm working through it. I've used Pomona's for 2 years now, and I'm actually really liking them. For somebody who has to cut the sugar, I am liking that. The pressure canner is also coming with recipes too. and I'll just show you. So there are recipes in the canning book. There are recipes also on, and this may not show because of the plastic, but there are recipes also on the boxes. So grab those recipes too. So there are, and that is from Ball. I would recommend that one, but that's the only oddball place is I would look at the recipe on the Ball jars.
Okay, so let me
I
back
hope that
up.
answers the question.
I think so. So let me back up to a newbie standpoint. Say I'm a brand new canner. I haven't purchased anything except my canning books.
Mm-hmm.
Where do I start? Do I just study this thing for a while and or do I just go and start purchasing things like jars? I don't even know where to start with a canner.
Okay.
My first suggestion would be what you were hinting at yesterday is start with the pressure canner because you can water bath in it and pressure can in it if your stove can allow it, and research if your stove can handle a water bath canner and a canner or pressure canner.
And that's a pressure canner. This is just one. This is an All-American.
And that'll be the only one you would ever need. Presto, they wear out from what I've been told because they have a thicker or thinner aluminum casing. But for jars, you don't even have to buy new jars. You can go to a senior center and ask them if there's anybody wanting to downgrade. They'll give you their jars if they know they're going to be used. You can go to yard sales, but be particularly about getting single use jars that, old people used to have. Like, I can tell you there's a lot of mayonnaise jars that I've been given and I'm like, they're only using for dry stuff. But there are so many different places where you can get your jars. Amazon right now is running quart jars for $31, which is probably 3 times the amount I've ever paid. So think outside the box when you're finding your jars, and just hit up your family and saying, "Hey, does anybody want to downgrade and give me some jars?" If or your family or your friends on Facebook or any social media platform, or even on Facebook Marketplace. Say, in search of canning jars. You could probably get them for free that way, and people will give them to you if they're dirty and they don't want to wash them anymore.
Yeah. I did see somebody mention one time before, check out your local thrift stores, or is that a good thing to shop at thrift stores? Is it for jars and lids, or is it just
Just for
mainly?
jars.
Okay.
The lids are only single use. And
Okay.
I know a
So
friend that used to work at a Salvation Army, and they actually had to throw away jars at one point because no one would buy them.
Okay.
So there's another
So
avenue.
just so everybody sees this, bear with me in the directional thing. I'm just warning everybody. This is well, where'd you go? Oh, there. So that's a lid. Okay. That's a ring. This whole not new, but with the canning system we use is called a 2-step system. The lid, the band goes over it. Hold on, I was popping things up on my screen. So your jar, lid, ring.
And how tight is that ring, Tony?
Just like that. I mean, I can't. So literally, I am not forcing it. I am turning it till it stops, and I'm done. Do not overforce it. Okay. But my point I'm trying to make to you is, and I would disagree a little bit with Leanne, rings are okay as long as they're not rusted, deformed, or have issues. These are a one-time use only. Other than for dry storage, other things non-food canned related. Okay. These, my opinion, as long as they don't have gasoline, oil, some kind of toxic material inside of them, You've cleaned them, you've sterilized them, you've washed them. These theoretically should be okay to use. You have to make sure you're checking this and the whole jar in general. Make sure there's no cracks or chips. Aside from that, this stuff's reusable, and this is reusable. This is not.
For dry
Okay.
storage, it is.
For dry storage, I meant for canning. Thank you.
Yes. I just want to make sure we're sharing that out and, saving the
Right.
environment.
So, I'll start with Tony since
Now,
Tony is on the panel. Do you have a pressure
okay.
canner recommendation?
I use a Presto pressure canner. I do agree with Leanne. There is a tendency that it will wear all American, but I have a glass top stove, and that's the recommended from my manufacturer because it the way it's built. That's the
Okay.
only reason why. I don't have a preference on Presto all American other than what my stove can handle. That's why I use what I do.
Okay. So, Leanne, do you have a certain pressure canner to start with recommendation?
If you're starting, it depends on what you can afford and what your stove can handle. If you can afford the All American like Glenda, go for that because it will last you longer than your life. You're going to be able to hand that down to your kids or your nieces and nephews. But if you can't afford that, go with the Presto and make sure you get the 3-piece weight. I I assumed that dial gauge was accurate because you can definitely tell if it's at 10 or 11 or 15 easily. People don't know you actually should get that pressure dial gauge. Yeah, the dial gauge tested before you even start. That was my
Mhm.
first mistake. Then 2020 hit, and I was like, I really need to get this checked. And before that, I assumed that since I'm from, a middle of nowhere, my county wouldn't test it. Guess what? They tested them. So 2020 hit, and I had to make arrangements to just drop off my lid and pick it back up. Here, my gauge tested 2 pounds over. So I was canning everything to mush. So that's why I highly recommend getting the 3-piece weight.
Okay.
But you
Which
don't
is
have to
also
buy
known
new.
as a jiggler, correct?
That's correct. And you can also don't have to buy brand new. You can get them at thrift stores or on Facebook Marketplace. My All American is old as my dad, and my dad's 85. As long as you have the right parts and it's up to date, it'll outlast me.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. So, Glenda, what do you have to say about pressure canners and what do you recommend?
Well,
You can start from
I
your beginning to end.
so I had a very much fear of pressure canners. I had a full on panic attack, and my husband bought me the All American because on the All American, um, there are like bolts that you like have to screw, and being a woodworker for me, I like that physical. You gotta bolt that thing down. So I'm gonna pull it up, but it is a Cadillac, and it's heavy. So as you can see, there are bolts, and you have to like opposite ends at a time. You screw these in, and so for me, that just my mentality, this is not a fact, okay? But for me, for my mental, I was like, okay, I can trust this thing. Now, that has nothing to do with the Presto. The Prestos are safe. I don't want to leave that fear, but that was just my mentality. I actually really like it. I have a glass top as well, and my manufacturer is actually okay with this one as well. So if you have a glass top, make sure that you do reach out to your manufacturer and find out what is safe for it. That also goes for the water bath canners too, because you don't want to put a water bath canner on some glass tops. So make sure you know what your manufacturer is recommending. But I really like this. And now that I've been pressure canning with the All American, I actually feel comfortable in learning the Presto. But that was just my getting started. for me. And I am now a pressure canner queen, and I love it. It's my favorite thing to do is to pressure can.
Okay, so since I have you here and I heard you mention, I have a question. So
Okay.
does the stove matter? Does it matter if I'm gas, electric, glass top? Does that make a difference in what type of canner I use?
Okay, so for the glass top, what you have to be careful with is that your glass top can break. And so you are taking a risk in putting any type of canner on top of your glass top stove. So you want to make sure it's safe with your manufacturer, whatever, whether it be pressure canner or water bath. So make sure you reach out to your manufacturer to find out that information. It might even be in the books, might be online, but you can always give them a call to find out. I do not own a gas stove, but if I had a gas stove, I would feel more comfortable in using all of them because um, just the safety of it. It's a lot more easier. And if I had a gas stove, honestly, I would be buying a double stacker All American pressure canner because I could put more weight on that thing and not have any fear of it. But because I have a glass stove, I don't have a double stacker. I just have a single. So as far as the electric, I can't speak anything to that. Like the regular electric stove, I can't speak anything to that. So does anybody have an electric stove?
I have a coil stove.
Okay, what do you think about that, Leanne? I'm gonna toss that back to you.
Like for my stove, since it's a newer one, it's gone like this. It bows in the center. So what has been suggested is get a couple porcelain tiles from the Home Depot to bring it to level it off. My husband's just put some couple washers under there, but I'm thinking I'm going to go get some ceramic tiles to make sure my canner is not bowing in because I like to run both of them at the same time. One on the 8-inch coil and then one on the 6 can coil. And then I'm hopefully done.
And then I've also seen where people have gone like a kerosene, like gas stove for outside and have done it outside because they just don't want to take that risk with their stoves in the house.
But you run the risk of actually
So
warping your
And
pressure
then,
canner.
yeah, so then there's that
right.
as well. So,
And also
Anybody bit of information, anybody that purchase or wants to purchase an outside system or a separate system, you have to make sure that the BTUs are less than 12,000. If you
Mhm.
get higher than that, you take a risk of melting at least in the All American and the Presto, melting the metal at some point, and it will burn holes, and you will just totally toast the whole process.
exactly.
I think camp chef stoves are the highly recommended.
Yes.
But my husband warns me about, the wind. So you got to make sure you have, barriers set up so you're not, catching the lawn on fire or something else on fire.
Yeah.
Things to
Okay.
think about.
So what's the difference? And since I have you here, Leanne, we'll start with you. What's the difference in water bath canning to pressure canning?
Well, with water bath canning, you're processing high acid foods like fruits and pickles and tomatoes. And then pressure canning is processing low acid foods like your meats, your potatoes, your vegetables, and some tomatoes too, because of tomatoes are now becoming low acid foods because of genetics. So with the water bath canning, you're just doing your jams. And like a lot of things are mostly high in sugar with the water bath canning, if I'm thinking about that right. And low pressure, you just putting stuff in a jar, slapping some water and salt in there, and calling it a day and get it going. So,
Sherry, I think it'd be a good time for me to share the screen if it's okay, because I have a chart from the USDA book that'll show what she's saying.
Okay.
Is
Yep,
that okay?
that'll work. Yep.
Right. Give me just a second and I'll get her.
So I am trying to start all of the questions so we can get to them.
Okay. So if you guys look at it, can you guys hear me okay?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay. So if you look at it over here, this is the point where you would want to see the arrow. I can't see the live stream, so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I can see the arrow.
Okay. So this over here is where it's telling you temperature water boils at sea level. Okay. It's typically 212 degrees. That does change for altitudes, and that's a different conversation. But canning temperatures for high acid fruits, tomatoes, pickles, and jelly products in a boiling water canner are acceptable items that fit into that. Okay. When you start looking at low acid vegetables, meats, poultry, that's when you have to use the pressure canner because it cooks it at a higher temperature and is more successful. Usually does it. I'm just saying because you have some problems with the way people process. So I'm just saying in general, this will kill most of the bacteria or all of the bacteria, the molds, the yeast, and botulism. When you pressure can the low acid foods, okay? Again, this is the high acid foods, and that's why a lot of that stuff applies. Give me one more second and I'll buzz right through to here. Here's one more chart, and it shows you. So this line is where it separates, okay? This is based acids. So high acid is up on top, low acid on bottom. Most of your fruits will fit into the top category and can be water bath canned. Most of your vegetables fall into the low acid and have to be pressure canned. Tomatoes are the one Leanne was saying that ride that line dependent on the variety. If I'm correct, Leanne.
Yes.
Okay, so there you go. I
Gotcha.
mean that's a clear. That's what the book says. That's what guidelines say. That's what we all sit here in this chat follow. So that's why that book's important because it gives you diagrams and it shows you what to look at and it shows you step by step what it is, why it is, and how come it is.
Okay. So, Tony, we'll start with you since you're here now. Let's
Okay.
talk about pectin and how much less. What is pectin, and what does that have to do with sugar and less sugar?
Okay. So pectin is, and anybody correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going off of just what I know about it. Okay. Um, Pectin is something that's found naturally in usually fruits. Those things that have a higher acid content will naturally generate their own pectin. Okay. Those things will actually allow a jam or a jelly to be preserved with a less amount of sugar, but that's not to say to deviate from a recipe because the recipes are set based off of what pectin you're adding and how much sugar you're adding. So I don't want to mislead anybody to say, well, if it's a lemon, which is a very high acid, doesn't need any sugar. It's dependent on the recipe you're making. Okay. But lemon tends to have enough acidity in it. Apples is another good one. Apples put off a large amount of their own pectin. The problem is that people don't like the flavor of just straight apples, okay, when they're cooked. So that's where the sugar comes in. It's also part of the preserving process. You have to look at it, and Mouse Toes last night on the chat last night made a very valid point. It's science. It's put together with the sugar levels, with the acid levels, with the fruit you're using, what you're doing with it, how long you do it with. All of that is inclusive to a recipe and a desired end product. To get to that point and make it safe, you have to follow the amount. So that's why you also see Ball, and I'm only using Ball because I don't know of any other brands that do it necessarily. Sure Gel is one of them. They will have a low sugar pectin. That's tended to use with fruits for jams and jellies with a lower amount of sugar. But a classic pectin cannot be played the same way theoretically. From oh, and I don't know what Glenda's showing because I can't see. You're little tiny.
It's a low sugar.
Yes. Yeah, she's got the real fruit, low sugar pectin. So there is products out there to do that with. I just don't want to mislead anybody and say that, okay, I want to make a raspberry jelly that calls for 7 cups of sugar. I'm just throwing it out there as an example. I don't want as much sugar, so I'm only going to use 3.5. If you do that with normal pectin, you are going to mess up the recipe and it will not set up. Anybody disagree with that? Yeah. So, I mean, it's based off the amount of pectin. It's based off the amount of sugar. It's based off the acidity level, and it's based off of what you're trying to make, that those things all tie together. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, I was going to ask Leanne or Glenda, did you want to add anything to it?
Well, Jesse put a definition of pectin in the chat on Grace's live stream there.
Okay.
I can't hear you, Glenda.
Oh.
Sorry, I muted because my 14-year-old Cocker Spaniel is snoring, so I didn't want that to come through. I apologize.
And that's okay. I'm sitting here looking. I'm like, why is my screen black? I turned the camera off, so sorry.
So we saw the question about Pomona's pectin. What is Pomona's pectin? And it is a, I'm gonna butcher it, low methoxyl, methoxyl citrus pectin, which means its gelling powder is activated by calcium, which comes in a separate packet in the box rather than by sugar. With Pomona's, you can sweeten your jam in almost any way and almost any degree without affecting its ability to gel. So if you follow any of the recipes in here, the process to use Pomona's is completely different than to use the ball, because you have to get your calcium started first, completely separate. It's a liquid, and then you add it in. So you have to read the instructions for this and follow that. Do not think it's the same thing as this. They are two totally different types of ways of making your pectin, okay? Because you need your calcium water to activate the pectin for this. So I just want to clarify that. Hopefully, does that make sense? I hope whoever asked that question, I hope that makes sense. They're two totally different ones.
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
Glenda, somebody's asking if you can hold that book really slow so they can see it in the camera. Sherry, would you mind blowing it up so they can read it a little, please? Thank you.
Is this one that Lavender Fluck, maybe she is dropping links to some books in the chat too, so
okay.
Is the Pomona better?
This one is specifically the Pomona Picket. Oh, sorry.
So is the Pomona better? You know what? I like it because it's lower in sugar. So if you are a diabetic or you need to cut sugar for whatever reason, it's one I would give a try. Just make sure you follow the recipe and you use Pomona's pectin only. I do like the recipes that I have made. Now, to be honest with you, I am a sugar addict and I want the sugar. But I really do like these recipes too. It has nothing to do like the difference in the taste or anything to do. The pectin that this is not the problem for me. It's that I want the more sugar, and I am a sugar addict. So I'm cutting the sugar. I hope, and I'm really bringing that fruit through, and I'm tasting more of the fruit. So I do like this better. The pectin is just to make the gel, and it's just the way it does. So just hopefully that makes sense.
all right. So let's give this question to Leanne. Is there a good brand of pressure canner you should buy?
I think between the Presto and the All American, you can't go wrong.
Okay.
I know my mom always used Miro, but I don't think the ones that she used even have the safety valves on them anymore because she bought hers back in the day, like 70s and 80s. So the newer ones have safety valves that if they do build up too much pressure, the steam is going to be left out of that hole and it won't explode. The newer ones will not explode. So get over that fear right now. It's not going to happen.
Right.
Because
Okay.
I know most people have that fear. Oh, well, their grandmother did that. I know my great grandmother, she accidentally took the weight off once, right when she turned off the stove. My aunt, who's 80 something, can remember that story because she was in the room with her. So get over the fact that they're not going to explode and you'll be all right. But yeah, All American and Presto, I you can't go wrong.
Okay.
And
Yeah, that's
besides
my
the
big
weight
fear.
of it, I think the Presto has the rubber ring on the inside, correct?
The
On the gasket, I mean.
Yeah, you have to replace that
Yes, it
gasket
does.
every
Yes,
2 or 3 years.
the seal.
So
Yeah.
it might be cheaper now, but you have to continually replace that seal. And I totally forgot about that part. And you got to make sure it's clean and you got to wash it after every session. With the All American, you just got to make sure it's not going to stick on metal on metal because,
Right. That's the
you got to keep
inside
it
of
lube.
the only thing with the All Americans, you have to add oil to right here.
That's
Good grade oil.
So yeah, like I add olive oil. I just take a little paper towel, put it on the paper towel, and I just go wipe it on, and that's it. So that's all I do.
And I think Glenda makes a good, or at least it's a point that I think needs to be made. And you guys are pressure canners. I'm just starting it, so you guys have the conversation because I don't know much about it. But I do know that what going through and trying to watch different things happening, you need to check and see because there's some people that say they use olive oil. You have some people that use vegetable oil. I've heard of Vaseline. I've heard of other things. So if you guys could talk about that, just in case people are considering doing pressure canning, what is acceptable, what isn't, that kind of stuff.
I just read my book. I just used it. Just says you can use it, so I just use olive oil because it said I can use it in my book. That's all. Read your book with your book.
Okay.
Read your book with your canner, whatever one you get, Presto or All American. Just read your book. It'll tell you what to do. So I use olive oil in mine.
So I'll go back because we had a question a while ago from I think from Grease and Fire's channel, but I have only canned raw packed beef stew chunks once. Tomorrow I'd like to start canning ground beef. All American 921 will be used. Any advice and tips on my first time? Thanks.
Have you ground beef? Canned beef? Glenda?
I have done the
haven't
chili for the ground beef, but I haven't done like just plain ground beef. Go ahead. I'll let you.
I haven't canned ground beef just for the simple fact my husband loves it frozen, and that's what we're gonna do. I just know you need a certain level of fat. It can't be too fatty, so you have to pre-cook it in that sense because if you have too much fat in there, it might go rancid, and also the chances of your jars not sealing might go up. So that's where I stand on canning ground beef. You just have to be careful what you're doing. And I think if you pre-cook it, you have to add liquid, right? But follow your manual.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody agree with that? I'm gonna get through some of these questions. Um, I have a steam canner. What's the best food to use for it? You want to start with that, Tony?
Well, just from my own experience, I know that you can do jams and jellies inside of it. I mean, that's something we would use it. I personally don't have one. and I've never used one, but it doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal. Now, to go into it further, from my knowledge and research, the best thing I can tell you is if it can be water bath canned, it can be steam canned. The one thing that I do know about steam canners is you can't stack any jars inside of it. It has to be one single level. Am I correct, ladies? Because I don't have
Yes.
one. So
Yes, I don't
okay.
have one, but yeah, from what I've watched about them, yes. And they use less water. And yeah, any recipe you would use in a water bath canner, you can use in a steam canner.
Okay.
And
Just
that's what
follow the
I've
steam
known as well.
guidelines.
So yeah.
And I know nothing about the steam canners because to me, I'm just gonna water bath. If it's steam or water bath, as you can see, I've got 3 water bath canners sitting back behind me. I'm not going to.
I do see where the benefit is, especially if you're a person who's water conscious. Nothing against it. I don't mean it that way, but I get where if you haven't purchased one, then a steam canner might make more sense to you. And I do get where the benefit would be. There are other people that do it because it's lightweight, it's not as heavy to carry around. I get that too. I'm kind of with Glenda. I have water bath canner, so I'm going to use water bath canner. If I end up getting a steam canner, it's a novelty and it's something I'll try, but it's not something I have to do what I need to complete. So
Right.
So there's some things that you water bath that I wouldn't put in the steam canner, like pie fillings. I think they should be in a water bath canner, and maybe fruits. But I think definitely pickles and jams could be done in the steam canner. And people are in droughts in some parts of the United States, that would benefit them. Or if they can't lift, all that water. What I do is I just take a gallon pitcher and slowly transfer it to the 22 quart canner if I don't feel like carrying that whole thing of water to the stove. And then when I turn off the stove, I just let it cool down completely because I've had problems where I've dumped the hot water down the drain and the seal around my plumbing falls off and I have water down my drain. So I've
yeah.
learned just to cool down the water and pitch it outside. So that's a tip.
Well,
for
if you don't
anybody.
put vinegar in it, though, you could also water your plants with it as well,
Mhm,
as long as nothing, has happened inside of it.
mhm.
And here's the other thing: if weight is an issue for you, like to carry that, and you want a water bath, it's electric water bath, and that's this one right here. And you can put that anywhere on your counter. But the neat thing is, it's got a spigot on it, and when you're done, just kind of scooch it up to your sink, and then just lift the little spigot up and pop it out and the water will just go, and then that makes that much easier. And that's actually how I do it. I have a little bit of some shoulder problems, so I can't always lift heavy things, and it makes it so easy to be able to dump that water just by just scooching it over and lifting the spigot and just letting the water out.
Makes sense. So I have a
Yeah, I
two-part
agree.
question.
And just for clarification on that, sorry, I just want to throw this out since we were talking about Glenda's electric one. That's an electric water bath canner, not an electric steam canner.
Right.
I know Glenda has said it, but I just wanted to repeat it again.
Okay. So I have a two-part question. There's 2 questions. I'm gonna put them all. I mean, I think y'all can answer it. Are there different type of pectins, and can you make jelly or jam without pectin?
I think Tony should answer this one.
With Tony.
I have a lawnmower going by. The best thing I can tell anybody is this book right here, The Complete Guide to Home Canning, has tons of recipes that are all with pectin, without pectin, with dry pectin, with liquid pectin. It gives you different examples of things to do. The other thing is this book or any of the like would also have those types of recipes. So it's not geared around to where you have to have pectin in everything. But if you're not using pectin, I would strongly recommend follow that recipe to a T, because you're hoping the fruit has enough natural pectin to do its own thing. So, just for clarification, to add pectin to it, there are ways of not using it. To get rid of pectin altogether, some of your fruits naturally have it, and you may not ever get rid of it totally. So you have to think of that as two different things. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me.
Okay.
Y'all want to add anything, ladies?
So there are two different ones, or there are two different. There's more than two. Sorry, there are different pectins. Just make sure you're following the recipes. Like I have the low or no sugar. So just you can get your recipes right here, and on your jar. You can get it there. You can even get them on your little individual. This is freezer jam. This isn't even like now freezer jam. You want to just throw this in the freezer when you get done. This is not a canning like water bath or anything, but like it's got the pectin in it. There's some that actually are regular canning, like to put on your shelf, that are already pre-made like that. You can find them with the pectin in it. So just go out there and just see what's out there, and with your pectins, and see what you're wanting to try out. There's different brands. So look at the grocery stores is where I would send you to go look in, and then also read your books too, to go back on that. But a lot of those brand name these pectins actually have recipes on there too. So check that out as well.
Anything you want to add, Leanne?
Well, the recipes that are on the Mrs. Wages and the pectin companies, they are tested safe recipes, so you don't have to worry about them spoiling or causing harm to your families. So feel safe with those recipes as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In fact, this is a Mrs. Wages. This is applesauce that I made last year. So, I mean, I love it. If you've not tried the Mrs. Wages applesauce, go give that one a shot. It is so good. It's not your applesauce in the grocery store applesauce.
I don't think
so good.
Applesauce in the store, I don't even think that should be considered applesauce. I'm sorry. Homemade applesauce is something, it is real.
Like, this is the best you'll ever have.
Leanne, you only make everything from scratch, so
you will not see any prepackaged food in my house at this moment. There is no rice-a-roni. There is no hamburger helper. There is no DiGiorno. You won't find that here.
Well, you will.
The thing I think I'm with you. I'm with you, Glenda. Yes. The realism about some of what we're talking about, applesauce is a prime example of it. You can flavor it. You can add things to it. Again, go with a recipe. But I'm just trying to say it doesn't have to be just applesauce. It could be a flavored applesauce, a different type of applesauce. The ability to have different these is what, to me, is the benefit of being able to.
I want to show this. I showed this to the panel before. This is canned grape juice. This was canned using the USDA's guidelines. And look at the color of that.
That's beautiful.
That is, let me tell you, that it tastes like heaven drinking it. I mean, seriously, it's not your grocery store grape juice. It is so good. And when we went and we made this, my husband and I, we made we processed for a few days and made several jars of these. And we cracked one open, we put it in the fridge, and we looked at each other and we're like, we do not have enough grapes. And we ran back up to the U-Pick farm to go get 2 more cases of grapes, because this is the best stuff we've ever had.
So I have a question in the background.
Okay.
What size jar is that?
Is that Mr. Bobby? Is that Mr. Bobby background?
Yeah,
So
he
this
like
is a quart.
a
This is a
quart.
quart. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can I jump in
This
here
is
because
a
I think
pint.
this is a good time for my props. Yep.
That's a pint.
Okay.
Yep.
So we have one more question right quick, and then we
Hold
can.
on. If I
I
can,
know Tony
sorry.
was prompt.
It only goes into because what Glenda's talking about. So,
Okay.
like she said, this is a quart jar.
Mm-hmm.
This is a pint jar. So you see the size difference. Okay, so a quart jar is 32 ounces. Pint is 16 ounces. Half pint is 8 ounces. And that jar is a quarter pint, which is 4 ounces. Now, there are a couple other sizes. And the other thing that goes along with it is that's
mouth.
regular mouth. No, that's regular.
Oh.
See?
It just looks like
Regular.
it in the screen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's wide mouth. See? Do you see the differences?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
One has
there
a shoulder,
are,
one doesn't.
one has a shoulder, one doesn't. Exactly. Most of all the sizes I showed, if I'm correct, do come in either wide or regular mouth, except for the pint and a half jar. I think that's only a wide mouth jar, if I'm correct on that.
Okay.
So
Sounds
now
good.
now people can see what we're talking about as sizes. So
Yeah. So do you all approve of Leanne? Do you approve of canning with an Instapot?
Oh no. The government does not approve of it, so I'm not going to approve it. And there might be companies that are producing them and saying that they're tested safe, but the government flat out says they are not tested safe.
Right.
And
nope.
my main reason why I don't want to do that is because if your stove is plugged into a 220-watt plug, your Instant Pot's in a 110. Do you think it can consistently keep that 264 degrees or 250 for the amount of time that you need to process that? And it's a different kind of material. So therefore, your recipe that goes into the All-American canner is not going to necessarily process for the same amount of time as in the Instant Pot, if that makes sense. It's a different grade of material. So we don't know. They haven't had the funding to even test them. So you're doing an experiment in your own kitchen if you want to try it. And
what I would throw into that
cents.
as well, and I'll try to make this as easy as possible. Part of the point of what you're trying to do, and I like the way that Mouse showed it last night, you're trying to get penetration to the middle of this jar to heat up properly, okay? And we're talking down in the middle of that jar, okay? So if you got something in there, potatoes or meat or whatever it is, your intention is to get through that. Every bit of food has a different density to it, okay? Especially depending on if it's whole, if it's diced, if it's pureed, whatever that may be. So when we were talking earlier about the pressure canners, part of the recipe process is based on altitude, okay? None of those devices, Instapots, I know that Presto has an electric pressure canner, none of those devices account for altitude variation. Altitude variation is very important in that recipe process. It's been tested by an altitude manipulator, I think is what it's called, to find out what is the temperature inside that jar at 1,000 to less feet above sea level. What is it? 1,000 to 2,000, 2,000 to 3,000, etc. on up. If you're going to use a device that's not going to be able to account for that, you're going to run into problems. That's where, for me, it comes down to.
Anybody need to add anything?
I think he said it all.
All right. So we have a question. I think for Leanne, we were in from the Mod Father.
Mm-hmm.
He said we were
Now you're in trouble.
Introduced to a brand of pectin called Clubhouse Pectin. which help reduce the amount of sugar used. Have you ever used that brand?
I've never heard of that brand until this popped up on the screen.
Ditto. I didn't know it
Yeah,
was out there.
same either.
Okay. So,
Sorry, Jesse.
all
And
right.
can I
So
throw something else? I see a question from TLC in the garden. She said Pomona, the only pectin for low sugar. And again, each brand has a version of it. I know Sure Gel has a low sugar. I know that Ball has a low sugar, which Glenda showed. And then the Pomona, and I think if I'm right, Certo also has a low sugar, but I'm not positive about that.
Hmm. And sometimes you can find it even in the generic brands too at the grocery store.
Right.
oh, okay.
But I've never
Um,
tried them, so I can't speak anything about them. But I know that I've seen them.
And I have used Mennonite and Amish store bulk pectin, and I have no problems with those.
okay.
Okay.
So, um, let's go back a little bit and talk about botulism. I know a lot of people have probably, I mean, a lot of new canners probably has never heard the word, period, and don't know that it even exists. And I'm not going to show my can of botulism, but y'all explain. My husband just picked it up. I'm like, no. I'm like, explain what botulism is, because the purpose
Can I
in this series
go ahead?
is
Go ahead. Sorry.
to promote and teach safe and safe canning. You know, we want to be safe, but we want to do it the correct way so that we don't end up with things like, what is botulism? We don't even want to hear that word um, when it comes to canning. So what is botulism?
Can can I share another screen for you? And I think it'll save all of us trying to have to explain it, if that's okay,
Yep.
Sherry.
Yep.
Okay. You got to give me. It takes me a second to figure out which one I'm looking at. I think this is it here, right there. There's your definition: growth of Bacterium Clostridium botulinum is canned food. In canned food may cause botulism. Okay, it's a deadly form of food poisoning. These bacteria exist either as spores or as a vegetative cell. The spores, which are comparable to plant seeds, can survive harmlessly in soil and water for many years. So I want people to understand that there is botulism already out on majority of the things out where we all exist, we interact. There's a difference to it, and I'll come to it here in a minute. When ideal conditions exist for growth, the spores produce vegetative cells which manipulate rapidly and may produce a deadly toxin. In the end of it, botulism is a deadly toxin. Okay, that's what it is. It grows and it is allowed to in a moist, low acid food. It's in a temperature between 40 degrees and 120 degrees and less than 2% oxygen. Okay, so I'm going to come out and I'm going to talk about that. The biggest thing to remember is that when you have a canned food and it's gone through the heating process, let's say you did meat inside of a water bath canner, okay? Because it hasn't gotten to the temperature to kill that off, when you have the jar on top, it's taken the oxygen level out of the jar. And because it wasn't canned properly, you've now given it the environment for it to grow botulism. Does that make sense? And do you guys agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody want to add anything?
Botulism can be purchased at the store when you purchase tin cans that are dented and look like they're about to explode. Those contain botulism. So it
Oh,
can be yeah. I might that be off topic, but yeah, botulism can be bought from the store too. So I'd rather test my own
how
process.
right. It's how you want to deal with it, and I deal with it in the sense of, and I'm sure Glenda and Leanne do as well. I want to control that environment as much as I possibly can. So
Yeah. My thing is if it's a low acid food, pressure can it. Follow your book, follow the USDA guidelines, pressure can it. And the other thing is potatoes and green beans. Like that's your two biggest ones that contain botulism. So you want to really make sure you're cleaning your foods too before you pressure can. Make sure that you're not putting something dirty in your cans too. So be very clean.
right.
You're doing your canning process, but yeah, you want to use your pressure canner for that kind of stuff.
For the green
And I
beans, I
think
think
Glenda,
I
because
triple
she helped
wash.
me.
Yeah, triple wash.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I triple wash my green beans, and they have to be immaculate before they go in the jar. You can't have brown spots or things that are eating it. It has to be pristine before you put it in the jar, because what comes in comes out that way.
Exactly.
And like with green peaches, they're going to taste green when you pull them out. So you got to make sure they're ripe.
Yep.
In that sense as well. But yeah, you have to have immaculate food going in that jar, because you don't know what might be growing there if it's a different color.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then Sherry, one other thing, you were talking about your jar of food. I think every canner makes mistakes. I've made mistakes, and I don't want you to feel bad or anything because you had your jar of food on your live the other day, and I was looking at it, and I have made that same mistake, and I think I know your problem with it. I did you look at your recipe?
No, let me tell you. So,
Okay,
since we all being honest here,
it's okay. It's okay. Hmm.
we made our own recipe. So I
Glenda, you're
am
about to get educated.
No, no, no. I think sharing these experiences is important. So I want to hear
yes,
about it.
yeah.
I
So
agree.
we wanted to make kumquat jam, and we watched recipes. I mean, we watch people make it, and we were under the assumption that they were just using kumquat and sugar. So
Mhm.
that's what we did, and we used as much sugar or as little sugar as we wanted to taste. And okay, once we got it where we wanted it, we put it in a jar. And my husband had seen some weird way of canning. We tried it. The top didn't make a noise. We thought it was sealed. I actually made my first canning successful, and voila, we got canned kumquat jam. And now it is like 5 times, 6 times darker than what it was when we started. I'm mortified by it. It got a little jiggle to it, but I am terrified to open it. So that's his job by the weekend to clean that out outside. And that was our first canning experience. But then I spoke with my canning buddies and realized I have to, by all means, use a beautiful book, such as Ball Cannon or something.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that story. And the reason is I think we've all made mistakes as
Mm-hmm.
canners. And I don't want you to feel like that you can't share that because we learn better from our mistakes. And I think also being able to share that, you know, you're not giving up and you're willing to learn how to do this correctly. I applaud you for that. Um, and I think going back to that book, hey, you could still do kumquats. I want you to go back to the book and learn to do it the right way,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to cheer you on.
Mm-hmm.
And
No, you gonna be on the
you
phone
got
when
this. You got this. I'm singing the Sherry song and the Bible song, and my church will go, you got this. You got this. So I applaud you for
So,
sharing that
so
story.
since we're having honesty hour here on the Sherry and Bobby show, I have only pressure canned 4 times. So in
Okay.
reality, I might be a step ahead of you, Sherry and Bobby, but I'm at the same point as you are. I'm learning it in the sense of making sure it's being done right. The fear, I get the fear part of it. I do.
Not laughing
I
at
just
you.
mean that. No, it'd be Jesse. I think we're all laughing at right now, and
That's
I'm
for
not
Jesse.
touching that comment at all.
Me
So,
either.
Jesse, that one was
anyway,
really
so I'm
good.
just
My mind
trying to
went
tell
blank.
you is that you're not alone. I mean, we've
No.
said it many times, but I mean that's the truth of the matter. You guys are not alone. Some of us, I mean, you give me water bath canning, I'll water bath canning until you die. I mean, really. But when it comes to pressure canning, I'm just learning it just as well. But I'm still going to follow the recipes as if it was a water bath can process. So
Yeah, understood.
Well,
Okay,
and
so go ahead, Grace. I mean,
well, let's see.
Glenn.
And the other thing is that one time I made jelly, and I thought I could mess with the sugar. I mean, I'm no better than anybody else. Long time ago, I took one of these and I thought, oh, I'm going to mess with the sugar. And I completely changed it. And my jam didn't set. And the color was like so, I don't have anything, the color of what it was, but it was awful. And it went outside in the garbage. You know what I mean? So, and I kept my jars. I didn't throw it away. I just went outside and then I washed everything outside and then I brought it in and then ran it through the dishwasher. You know what I mean? And just got it real nice and clean and sterilized. We all make these mistakes.
Yeah, yeah, but we definitely want to learn from these mistakes. So the purpose, and let me start over a little bit. I am Sherry from Black's Tropical Homestead. We talking all things canning and prepping the correct and safe way with
Right.
Mennonite Farmhouse, Grace and Fire, and Kettle Kitchen. So, as you all have noticed, or most of y'all have noticed, we are streaming to Kettle Kitchen, Grace and Fire, Black's Tropical, and a couple other places like Facebook Land. And we do want to get the word out of safe and proper canning because there are safe and proper ways. We did not can the right way the first time. My biggest fear, other than hearing that pressure on that pot, is making my husband sick or my family or my friends. So this is the purpose for having this Canon series because we are brand new at Canon. It can be and it is scary, but we definitely want to make sure we feed our family safe foods. I mean, it has got to be devastating to not only make your family sick, but lose an entire year of crops because I did not can it properly.
Mhm.
Welcome to the stream. So,
I think it might be important to when we were talking about your jar, and I got a lawnmower gone, so I apologize for the loud noise. It's not necessarily that there's botulism in your jar. It's not necessarily that there is a bacteria. The assumption is there probably is, and I would go with that. I just don't want people to think, well, I made a mistake automatically. There's botulism in it. I'm never going to. You just got to follow the process, prevent that from happening. That's what we're trying to get you to. We're not scientists that are saying yes, Sherry's jar has botulism in it because we don't know. I'm not even trying to profess that by the slightest, but it could eventually lead to that, and that's what you don't want to do. So I just wanted to clarify that.
most definitely. Okay, so we have another question. Let's start with Leanne. What do you suggest if there's no recipe for what you want to can?
Don't can it. So you need to tell us what you want to can. Because, yeah, if there's more than one way to preserve food, and that's what people don't seem to understand. They think they can put anything into a jar when you really can't. And I can't think of any example off the top. Broccoli. People think they can can broccoli. I'm sorry. That is the nastiest thing ever. Don't can broccoli. Or zucchini. My sister-in-law canned summer squash and zucchini in a pressure canner. And I'm like wondering what, she's not the smartest chick in the house. But don't can it just because you can put it into a jar. You need to follow a tested recipe. All right, off my rant.
Grace and Fire.
Well, I'll piggyback off Leanne. You know, honestly, there are other ways of preserving. So you can still make jam and not can it per se. You can put it in your freezer. You can also freeze dry, which is something that I'm doing as well. So that way it is shelf stable. You can dehydrate. You can get your dehydrator and you can dehydrate to make it shelf stable. You just need to look at, you know, what equipment do you want to purchase? What do you want to put up? Is it freezers for your, you know, for your home? Is it a freeze dryer? Is it a dehydrator? It's not just canning is the one size fits all for preservation. It's about having different things to store that food up. So, because what I can't put in a jar, I'm going to find a different way to preserve it. And that's what I'm actively doing on a constant basis every single day. And so just think of it that way and just keep rolling. I mean, it's about having, like I like to say, different tools and toolboxes, but that's basically what it is. It's different tools and toolboxes, or different tools in your toolbox for
Or not putting your eggs all in the same basket.
Yes. Or don't put your eggs in your pocket. That's what you should. That's what we really should be saying. Don't put your eggs in your pocket.
I need that reminder every week. Tony, you want to add
They
anything?
get kind of stinky after a while.
I'm always stooping down and like.
I think I really need to. I want to give you a different answer, but I think it's only valid that I piggyback with them as well. The reality to it is, and this was a tough sell, but I think you guys know what I'm talking about after the conversation last night. I actually had to find my own insight into this question. Why is it when you want to do something, everybody's loud around you? Sorry. I think the reality is specifically like you guys are saying, don't think it has to go in a jar. If you can't put it in a jar because there's not a recipe in one of these books we've talked about, or one of these locations, or whatever it may be, there's got to be an alternate way to do it. So don't give up on, okay, I can't can it, therefore I'm not going to do anything with it, because there's another way. Meat is a good example. Just because I don't know how to can it right now, I'll guarantee you I got meat. I have it different ways. I have it different than that. That is only going to give me one more step. And I know this sounds weird, or at least people may have heard it before, and it just cliche-ish. I'm not trying to be. I look at it as there's 6 pillars to my house. There's my refrigerator. There's the pantry I use on a daily basis. There's my backup pantry. There's my freezers. There's my canning shelf. Now, it would be different if I had my own garden. I'd be another one. If I had my own cows, that would be a different one, because there's multiple things I would get out of that. I got 6. That's what I work with, and soon to be 7 with my garden. I feel like if I can build my house as big as I possibly can, then my family is theoretically safe to move forward regardless of what happens. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. That's it.
Yeah. So. Totally makes sense. So let's see. We have a question from TLC. With tomatoes being lower in acid, how do you determine if you should water bath or pressure can?
It depends on your recipe you're using. Like for salsas and pizza sauce, I know my pizza sauce recipe is a water bath recipe. But if you're doing whole tomatoes or crushed tomatoes, I usually pressure can them. But I also use my homegrown heirloom tomatoes. So I keep that in the back of my mind that they're higher in acid, but I still put lemon juice when it says to put lemon juice in it. So it just all depends on what you're doing with them, or you're making sauce, or you know. I just think, yeah, it just depends on your recipe.
Okay. Glenda.
I just follow the recipe. It's just as simple as, if it says to water bath, it says pressure can. And that goes with tomatoes too, because I've done them both ways. So it just really depends on what I'm doing. And then I grabbed the wrong one. This is fresh fruit produce protector, but there's one of these that's a citric acid as well. So you can either use lemon juice or citric acid. So pretend this says citric acid because I did grab the wrong one from downstairs. But so I just follow my recipe that I'm using, and depending on what I'm up to.
And
But
you don't taste the lemon juice if you add it to your tomato products.
you don't. You really don't. And I am very sensitive to lemon juice. Um, I can pick up on it very quickly. And with tomatoes and things, I don't pick up on it at all.
Okay.
No,
Don't even want to add anything.
I want to share a page with you, and at least from one aspect you'll understand what I'm saying. So this is going to reference this book here, which is The Complete Guide to Home Canning. Okay, so on this, what you see is a chart that's out of the book. Okay, this is about tomato juice. This chart is very simplistic if you just look at what it's telling you. So this top one is telling you can boil water, can it. Okay, this middle one is telling you have a process time for a dial gauge pressure canner, which would be the dial that comes on the top. And I'll come back and let Glenda show what that is. And then there's a weighted gauge pressure canner, the jiggler type, if I'm correct, ladies, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so in here, it's also telling you what to do, what style you're doing. Hot pack, obviously, it's got hot liquid in it, or it's cooked. And I'm just giving you a general reference, but in this case, you'll know how to read it. It tells you the size of the pints or quarts, tells you what your altitude level is right here, and how many minutes you should process them for. Okay. What I'm showing you that for is specifically to say that this book will walk you through whether you can water bath can it by the guidelines, whether it has to be weighted, or what's the other one? Dial gauge. Sorry, I got dogs that don't like FedEx men for some reason. Anyway, I just wanted to show you. I mean, the book will help you. So if there's something to add, please do.
Well, I'm going to show you just on the pressure canner. I've just got the lid. Oops, I turned it the wrong way. So there is the dial that is right here, and it'll show you your pressure. And then here is the jiggler, and then there it's the weight. I'm going to pull that up a little closer. I use the dial just as a reference to give me an idea where I'm at, but I go by this, and it jiggles. So as you can see, let's see here. There's a 5 right here, a 10, that's 5 pounds, 10 pounds, and then there's 15. And it goes by your altitude. So I'm under 1,000 feet for my altitude with where I live at. And typically most everything, I always read my recipes, just double check, but most everything that I have done in the last 5 years, I don't think I've ever used the 5 or the 15 that I can recall, but I know it's always 10. And that's every recipe that I've ever used. So all I do is I just take it after my canner has vented, and my canner says 7 minutes of venting. And then I just take the little jiggler, and then I just kind of go right on, just like that. It's just as simple as that. And I leave it on there for the entire process and even the entire cool down. You leave this on there. Do not take this off after it's done processing. You just leave it alone. Just walk away when it's done. And when it's fully cooled down, this gauge, I look at this and you see how it's all the way back to 0. That is pretty much the only time I truly trust this side. Like I'm like 100%, and then whenever I go just to make sure that it's fully out, I'll just kind of lean it back just a little bit, and if there's any air in there, it'll kind of go shh, and I'll just let off of it, and I'll just leave it alone, and I'll walk away, and then I'll do it again later, and then there should be no air, and then just lift it up, and then that's how I know that it's safe to open that pot. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, that I think that canner to me is very intimidating. But now it's like, oh, what was you? Well, why were you so intimidated?
No, it is actually. I really like this canner. It's so easy to use. It is very heavy. I will say that. But I really, really, really like my canner.
Yeah. So I know somebody was asking, was it okay to can on a glass top range, and you have a glass top range and you use that same canner for it. So
So
yes,
check with your manufacturer first. I don't want to be responsible for anybody's glass top breaking. So call your manufacturer, tell them what pressure canner you have, what water bath canner you're interested in. Get the okay from your manufacturer of your stove before you do it. I'm not going to tell you what manufacturer I have, but I want you to do your own research and reach out. But yes, I've never had problems with it. I've been canning on the same stove for the last 5 years. There are no cracks or scratches. But what I will say is that I am very gentle with my glass cooktop. So when I go to put my pressure canner on there, I literally just gently set it on there, and then I add my water to it. I don't want to add the weight of the water and then set it down. I just slowly add things to what I need to add to it, and then I heat everything up nice and slowly. And then when I'm done with my process, I let everything cool down. I don't move my pressure canner when the process is done. I just leave it right where it's at. I don't move it on the stove, because you will notice that your glass top will heat up. And so you want that to cool down naturally. Do not move anything with the pressure canner. Whatever one you use, leave it alone. Just leave it alone. Turn off the heat, walk away. And even like the next day, I mean, that's whenever I actually take the pressure canner off, and then that's when I will clean everything up. Now my jars are completely out by the next day, but what I'm saying is I leave the canner even there and just let it all completely come back to the temperature. That's my personal preference for my glass top. But reach out to the manufacturer and get their okay and their blessing before you use any of them.
Anybody want to add anything, Tony, Leanne?
I think she said it all. Just research it and be careful, because you don't want to have to go buy a new stove, especially at this day and age.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have a question. Can you use monk fruit sweetener or other natural sweeteners, Tony? You want to talk to us about that?
Sorry. I gotta find a different location to have live streams. I was actually looking it up, and I only found, because I don't know the answer to that question, to be honest with you, because I've never dealt with monk fruit. I would say go to this book, go onto the website, the National Center for Home Food Preservation, look it up. It'll give you a listing of different places you can look if it isn't the answer you're looking for. And I don't want to say yes or no because I'm not sure. I do know that they do say, while they don't have recipes that involve Splenda or something like that, that there are recipes out there that can be used. So I think your best bet is to research it. I just don't use it, so I'm not sure. Glenda looks like she has something to say.
I have an answer for you. According to the Real Fruit Low or No Sugar Pectin, This particular one right here, you can add sugar, sugar substitute, or honey if using. That is according to this one. And I'm reading it straight off the label. So again, just read your recipe. And if you need to switch and use a different one, read your recipe. But according to this, add sugar, sugar substitute, or honey. And I have used honey with the pomonas. So
The unfortunate part is I don't think we're directly answering her question, but it does for the possibility of monk fruit to used, because I didn't see it. I didn't hear you. Right. I'm assuming that is correct. I just don't have a direct answer other than what Glenda just told us. So.
Yeah.
According to that one. Yeah. Okay. So we have one more question that I saw right now. Do you guys know where I can find a pint half gallon jar?
Walmart, your grocery store. But I don't personally can in the half gallons. I've been told you can juice in them, but I just would not, because you need at least 2 inches headspace above that. And these canners are not designed for those half gallon. Now I will say the half gallon jars make great storage containers. I love to store my dry goods in there, flour, sugar, salt, that kind of thing. I love my half gallon mason jar. In fact, I stored some apple chips that I made, and I was giving some to my sister, and I would not let her walk out the door with my half gallon mason jar. Like, that is my favorite jar. They make great storage jars, but I personally would not. The other place you can check, Tractor Supply, Rural King, any kind of farm and home store, check there as well for your jars, and same with your lids. That would be my recommendation.
I have a question. What other books can we use other than Ball, USDA, and whatever books, Grace and Fire? I know you have a whole stack of books. What other books or sources can we use as far as the proper and safe way of canning?
Okay, so I would go with the companies that have been around, tried and true, in the canning industry only. I would not be looking at favorite, let me think how I want to put this, your favorite chef's recipe, and it's going to drop a canning recipe. I would not be looking for that. I want you to look for, it's as simple as going with the tried and true companies that are vested in canning, because they're hiring the scientists and the people who are testing these recipes. This is a science. This isn't you're gonna be in the kitchen creating a recipe and just cooking like just a normal dinner. Like you are canning. This is science. So you want the tried and true that's been around. So that's how I would do it. Again, I would stick with the Ball jars. I would stick with USDA. I would stick with Pomonas and use only Pomona products with that. Stick with that. And then you can pick up products that have the recipes on the back of them and use those. Those are tried and true as well. There's a lot of recipes, and stick within the last 10 years, because the canning recipes are updated with how to can. So make sure your books are within 10 years. And the other thing is, you don't necessarily have to purchase these books. You can go to freshpreserving.com, get your recipes. You can go to USDA, get your recipes. Another resource that we have not mentioned, you can go to your local library and look for books. Just check out the date in the book to make sure it's within the last 10 years. Make copies of the recipe from there. If you can't afford to buy those books, there's nothing wrong with going to the local library.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're saying is these books,
I think that's a valid point.
Every 10 years or so?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I still have my very first canning book, but I have it because it's a cherished book for me. I don't use it, but it's my cherished book because it's where I started 11 years ago. And it's very special and dear, but I don't use it. I am using, this is my new ball book. And then Mouse Toes had a different one that I'm going to be looking for. I'm like, oops, sorry. I'm going to be getting the one for the single jar meals because I'm like, ooh, this will be good for just like a quick meal. I like that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah.
but it'll be a ball one, and they're not too terribly expensive. They're right around the $20 range ish for most of them.
Okay. You want to add anything, Tony? Middle night?
I was trying to find
Go with
the link
what
to my.
is tested, what is true. This was saying that I would go ahead and agree with what Glenda said. I think the important thing is just realize you can go to the library to look through this material. You can go online. There's a bunch of different places you can go. Any of the where you would get your pectin from, you can go to their websites and get it. I think there's plenty of resources out there, and it really ties into what she said. You got to remember, you can ultimately not put, you don't have to modify a recipe because you want to put garlic in it, or you want to put basil in it, or you want to do this to it. You can do those things afterwards. What you can, the guidelines, add the additions when you go to cook the meal. That would be what I would say.
That makes sense. Leanne?
Yes, to piggyback off what Tony's saying, chicken soup. I can that for emergency uses when my husband can't even cook.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm sick and I need some nourishment, all he has to do is open the jar, throw it in the pot, turn the stove on, and throw some egg noodles in there. Instead of putting the pasta in when you're canning it, it's going to taste even better. And you can't throw pasta in there anyhow because it's not tested safe. And to go back to a question from Jennifer at Good Times Homestead, she was saying you can buy squash at the store canned, but you can't can it at home. The home canners don't have the processes that commercial canners have. We can only process at certain temperatures versus what manufacturers can. So that's why you can't just pick something off the store shelf and think you can can it at home.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
To put light onto that.
Tony, you muted.
Gotta love it. Technology's great. One other thing I would like to add, if I could, real quick, and let me look for where it's at real quick. It is not approved. Make sure everybody catches what I'm saying, and this is, you'll find inside the USDA Complete Guide to Home Canning book. It is not approved to put noodles, any pasta, rice, flour, cream, milk, or other thickening or dairy ingredients into your canned products.
Right.
Now, to my knowledge, there is one exception to that, and that's when you're making pie filling. There's clear gel. Clear gel is specifically intended for that type of thing. Aside from that, I've never either used it or totally know about anything else. That is the only thing I know of. Aside from that, all those things I listed, do not put into your canned product.
Okay. So I think that answered because Andale just asked, can I can chicken and rice soup that's really thick? So I'm assuming that answered her question because it has rice in it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
Yeah,
she
you
can
can.
go through and she can do what is called a starter. And I think this is a great idea and a way to do it. And it's versatile. Sorry. Let's go with my recipe just being celery, carrots, onions, chicken, and broth. Okay. And maybe a little salt. Can that. Do what you want to. Okay. Then you have have, say, 12 jars on the shelf, you can make chicken noodle soup, which you add later the noodles. Chicken and rice soup, add the rice later. Make a creamy chicken over whatever, I don't care. You can do that later, but it leaves 12 cans of product on your shelf with the ability to do 20, 30 things with them. That's what you really want to do. Or ingredient can, meaning I want a can of potatoes, I want a can of onions or carrots, and my chicken and my broth. I'm going to put something together. However you want to do it, it's still in the end the same thing, is leaving the versatility at your discretion, and you're not canning something that's inappropriate or not approved.
And then to piggyback off of what Tony said, on page 406 of this book, because actually I was wanting to do exactly what Tony said. There is a recipe, and all it is it's chicken stock, cooked chicken, celery, carrots, onions, black pepper, and bouillon cubes. And I actually am going to be making this recipe pretty soon to do the chicken and rice. So I'll just take the rice whenever I go to pop the can, and I'll cook my rice separately, and then I'll just add the rice to my soup. But here it is. Here's the recipe for it. And or if I don't want rice, I can add noodles. Or if I don't want either of them, I'll just have chicken soup. Just as simple as that. It's very versatile.
That's the recipe I was talking about when I said emergency chicken soup.
Okay.
And I just shared a link to my vegetable soup video where I explain how you just, it's a base of just your vegetables and you can add so much to it. Like I make cheeseburger soup with it, or I add in chicken and Italian seasonings. I mean, the possibilities are endless when you just have the base and add either beef broth or chicken broth or pork broth or beans or pasta. I mean, yeah.
So one other thing that goes along with what Leanne's saying and Glenda says, in this book, everybody but Glenda, to my knowledge, has.
I don't have it.
When you go to page, girl, you need to build up your library, okay? When you go to 270, I think it's 4. Bear with me. Yes, 274, and there's like 5 or 6 pages. Those are one meals, simple 1 jar meals. There's a cookbook that has those recipes. There's your starter meals right there in that book. Okay. The point is go through these books and look through them, because you will have multiple resources available to you. I highly doubt any of us, because it was something I was stuck on until this morning. It finally clicked. I am not, 2 books, I am not going to be able to make all those recipes in the next 5 years. I guarantee you. I don't care if I cooked every one of them every single day. I had to come to a realization that maybe those are the only 2 books, plus a couple of Glenda's, that I may ever need. I mean, really. So
what were you just saying? You were telling me to build up my library?
Yeah.
That's different. You got to have a library before I
Tony.
can say anything. My library's built. I can do what I need to do. Anyways.
Yeah, like.
Hey, look.
My point. My.
I mean, I need that
I don't
book.
use Pomona Pectin, so that's
I need that
different.
book.
Okay. But here's my point. My point is everything
Sorry.
we're talking about meal prepping is right there. It tells you what to do step by step, so you can't get lost or confused on it. So these books are resources, and it clicks. I get it. So there, I'll shut up.
Are you having an aha moment?
I guess I did. We call that an epiphany, but
I'm so happy.
I don't know how epiphanated I am, but yeah.
One other thing that we haven't talked about, though, is that when you're canning, that you leave the bands on your jars for 24 hours. You want to wash your jars because there will be food and stuff on them, and you don't want anything left on this. You want to take your bands off, and you want to store them. And I'm actually holding on to my jar lid. And that's how I know I have a proper seal.
Don't be afraid to hold that.
I know. I'm holding it. Look.
Well, I'm just saying to the viewers, don't be afraid to hold that because if it falls, you didn't want to eat that 10 days from now or 20 years
No,
from now.
no.
Yeah.
I mean, like, seriously, that is
I'm
how
glad you
alive a
said that
lid.
because I never leave the ring on all the time. I never realized that the ring has to come on.
So the reason is that your air temperature will change, and it is possible, especially with some of the ball lids, that the lids can pop off, and you could get a false seal because then it could reseal. And so you want to catch it so that way you don't eat that food. So take the lids off so you know that you have got a proper seal. This actually happened in my food pantry last week. We were rearranging our food pantry. I had a shelf that I wanted to put my food on. And as we were going through the stuff, we had a jar that the lid had come undone on a jelly, and it had mold on top of it. And we were able to just pitch the food right then and there. We never ate it, nothing. We didn't have a false seal or nothing because, and I was explaining this to my husband, the reason we knew that that food was bad is because I had taken that band off. And the other thing, you don't ever do this. And I'm working on my husband downstairs. Sorry, this is a pet peeve of mine. Never store your jars like this. Ever.
No.
False seal as well. The same thing as
Yep.
leaving those bands on. You will create a false seal. Leave them like this. So that way, whenever you go to get your food, you know you still have that proper seal, and that food is exactly the way it was the day you canned it. It is still good.
My one
Oh,
addition, Glenda, do you happen to have your flatted jars right there for your tomatillos?
My tomatillos.
Yeah.
No, the flat, the cardboard
the
flat,
case of there we go.
the case. Okay. My understanding, and this is what I do, you guys can disagree or agree. I'll let you do that. Those can be used for storage because they apply equal pressure across on a stack. Okay. But you're not supposed to put more than 3 of those tall. Now, I would not do those with quart jars because of the weight. Some people don't do it with less than that. I'm just saying that is approved to do it that way if you choose to.
I do not.
I don't know what you guys feel.
I do not.
Okay.
I have stored my jars in here, okay? But I will not stack jars on top because I still could have that problem. It can be still approved, but because of my temperatures and my heat, I could still have that, even if it's flat, even if it's even distribution.
I'm
If that was another case
okay. I was
sitting on
just
top,
talking about one, right?
if that's another case sitting on top and even distribution in my area, that's still a problem. I have had jars go bad. I just don't do it anymore. That's experience speaking.
Okay.
That's just me. You want to do it, then you do it. But I have actually had it where a jar has come undone and I quit doing it. Now, do I leave them on a single layer on a shelf with nothing on top? Absolutely. And I can pull that jar out? Sure, there's nothing wrong with that because there's nothing sitting on top. But in my area, I've had food go bad with that. So I just don't. I quit.
You want to add anything, Leanne?
I have custom built shelves, so I don't have to even think about that problem. But
Ooh,
you know, I have a husband that can, do anything I want. So,
nice.
but not everybody as lucky as me. Storage can be an issue, but I've been told that you can put a thin layer of like cardboard on top, but I still wouldn't risk it just because you don't know.
No.
It's scary. I mean,
No.
I put all that work into it. I've washed the jars and all that kind of stuff, grilled the food. Why do I want to have something go wrong just storing it?
Now, I will make a recommendation. You can go buy, like shelves or get somebody to build you like a little like shelf, like with little legs. If storage is an issue and you have like this great big gap, or you know a woodworker, get them to build you a little shelf so you can stack more up onto it. But I have lost too much food. This is just, again, my experience. I have lost too much food doing that. But I mean, if you want to try it and see what happens, you go right ahead. And if it doesn't ever happen at where you're at, and that's the approved, I mean, you go ahead. But my house, we don't do that. Because I'm tired of losing food. Sorry, Tony.
Tony,
Sorry.
No. And just for clarification, I'm actually not, I'm not disagreeing with you. I agree with you. All of my stuff is shelved individually layered. I just have a wide shelf on it. I just know I've heard and read where they say that it's approved to do it. So I was trying to throw it out there because some people, unfortunately, especially when they're starting to can, don't have the space until they've made it for canned items. So I mean, that actually I want to throw out as a good recommendation. Make sure you got the space to can what you're going to can, because I know for me, I can see by Leanne's look, and I think by Glenda's look, you run out of space way too fast if you just go. So I
Tuck it
think
under the bed.
having the space available ahead of time as best you can is something you need to consider as well as a canner.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad to know that because I've been trying to stack cans and like get as much as I can in that. So, does anybody know why we can't can noodles and rice?
Because the book says you can't.
Ultimately, what it comes down to is the swelling that those products do inside the jar. You lose what was tested, which is the juice, the product, all of that. If it's being absorbed by something else, and with that density thing, back to what we're talking about, getting to the middle of the jar is going to be hard to do if you got rice and noodles. Changing the schematics of that test.
Well, let me go to this one. So even if you have the plastic holders for the jars, you can stack them.
I think you can.
The plastic holders.
You can.
I'd like
to dump it into the other one.
Which
I can look it up. Here, I seen a picture of them this morning. I'll try to get to them real quick.
Okay. And
I'd like to know which ones we're talking about.
Any tips for dry canning?
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Because one, you're talking about how hot is your oven? If you put it in at 350 degrees, can you stick your hand in the oven at 350? Yeah, you can, right? Because it's dry heat. Pressure canner. Yeah. If you were to put your hand in the pressure canner when it's going full steam, how long would it sit in there? You're going to not want to put it in there, right? So there's a difference between moist heat and dry heat. So the dry heat is not going to penetrate to the center of your jar like it would in a pressure canner. And also, your jar is not meant for dry heat. It will explode or crack or something. You're going to waste more food and more jars trying to dry can than you would just pressure canning.
And a lot of people, when they dry can, they're dry canning things like sugar or flour. My recommendation with that is just get you a half-gallon mason jar and screw that lid on there. That's it. That's all you're going to do. Maybe put a bay leaf in it if you want. Put it in a dark place. You don't have to like seal it. You know, just, like put it in a stove and try to dry can it. Don't do that. Just put the lid on it and put it in a dark place. It'll be fine right there. That's what most people can't do it.
So we have a question in the back.
So
Go ahead, Tony.
I'm going to show you this real quick, and I think this is what she was talking about. Oh, except for that part right there. Can you see that, Glenda?
No.
Not yet. You're getting fuzzy. Oh, there you go.
Oh, never seen that.
See, this
So
sister
you guys
can't
can
afford
see
that
that
kind of
okay?
stuff.
Yeah,
But it is
maybe.
a valid question, I think, specifically, and she's going back to what Glenda was saying in the sense that would those be acceptable stacking then because they're hard plastic and able to be done that way?
You know what? I would give them a shot and see.
I
I mean,
think
I don't know. I
that's a
haven't seen
question
it.
for somebody else.
Yeah, I would have to look at them. And as long as they're like the plastic is strong enough and up, the issue is actually this problem where it's making contact. But if there's a gap and it's sitting
Right.
up, I would think that it would be okay. Again, store it in a cool place. I would give it a shot and see what happens, but
Yeah.
no guarantees for me because I have no experience with those things.
And I would also throw into that, I wouldn't put your whole canned select or shelf on into these crates, because if it doesn't work, you're going to lose
Yeah.
everything you put in there. So
And the price of that's kind of pricey too. You could totally do something different, a little bit cheaper.
But if you have a storage situation, those would be great for underneath the bed, so they'd be easy to pull
right,
out. But that's if you can afford it.
Yeah.
right, yeah.
So I have a question. So what is a ball cannon saying that you can store or keep canned goods for 1 year?
18 months.
18 months.
So when you hear people say they store canned goods for years, 5 years or so, that's not safe.
So this actually has to do with their guarantee that this
Liability.
jar is going to work. Yeah, it's their liability. But I have eaten things that are 3 years old and I've not gotten sick. I'm still here. The quality is fine. The taste is fine. You know, the color for me is what has changed a little bit. But I've eaten it, and not any problems. Again, it goes about rotating your food and preserving what you know you're going to eat.
Okay. I think that make a lot of sense because I was thinking, once we get in the swing of canon, I love the fact that one channel I watch all the time, she do pantry challenge for like 2 months where she basically clean out her pantry. And in my mind, I was saying, well, if you can store it for 5 years or so, you know, why worry about doing this every year? But that totally makes sense so that you can start off fresh at least every year or so. So
Mm-hmm. And it's also important to label your jars too. I mean, that's so important. You can either do it right on the jar like that, or you can buy dissolvable labels, which I have those as well, and they work really well. That's actually how I do like ones I'm going to give away. But make sure you label. And then the other thing that I now do, I'm going to spell it because I don't want to set off anybody's device, but I have an ALEXA device.
yeah,
So I will
Mhm.
ask my device, what is 18 months from today? And I will actually write the expiration date so I know what the ball lid guarantees me for. So I have an idea. So I have an expiration date and I have the day I preserved it on my lid.
okay,
Yeah.
That's just something I do. So I have an idea. So when I'm like reorganizing my pantry, I can see what I need to eat up as fast as possible.
okay. So I guess I would ask, um, what's a good start for canning? As y'all know that we have pretty much never canned before the correct way. So where is a safe space for us to start, or what's the easiest thing to can?
Are you, so you're talking by item when you say that?
What's that?
You're talking by item, like whether it's a fruit or a jam, a jelly, tomato sauce. That's what you're asking.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, either or,
Okay.
it can be something specific or what may be easy for Tony or what Leanne. So yeah, we can start with Tony and
Right. Which that I'm okay with because I think that we're going to vary a little bit in it just from our experience. If I was to help somebody can, I would definitely, there's probably 6 things that I think are pretty easy. Jam, I would say jam probably is the easiest out of the jam jelly preserve because there's other things to do on the other ends of that. So if I was going to teach you or tell you to do something, it'd be jam. My next thing would be tomato sauce. um, I would probably say you can do an applesauce pretty easy. I think that a barbecue sauce or something like that would be easy. um, and I think I just want to stay with that because I think that that would be the easiest things for water bath canning from my perspective to do. That's what I would go with.
that makes sense. All right, let's give Grace and Fire go.
Well, I'm going to do this in a two-part. So, for me, what I would recommend, if you don't have the book, let's say you don't have the book, go to the grocery store, find find you one of these Mrs. Wages, or a pectin, something that interests you. But honestly, like this is a no-brainer. You chop like this is pickling cucumbers. You buy some canning salt. Okay, I gotta get that. I gotta get some distilled vinegar, and then I need the pouch. And then I'm gonna follow the recipe on the back of this packet. And that would be my very first canning because that's as simple as done and over with, just to get my feet wet. But and then of course the book too, right? But I'm gonna throw this back at you, Sherry. What are you interested in canning? That's
Tomato
what I want to.
paste. Well, let me say, I can say tomato paste, but as you all know, we grow tons of fruit. So I do want to dabble in jellies, jams, marmalades, but mostly tomato sauce.
Passion fruit jam.
Okay, then that would be the very first thing that I would start. Is what you said, tomato sauce. That would be
Tomato
my
sauce.
first one if I were sitting in your shoes because you said, you've told me you've got a garden too, and you've got a lot of tomatoes coming in, right? So you've got to do
Tons.
something with those tomatoes. And that would be the very first thing. So I would get my canning book out, start making my list of supplies, and then be ready to go on that recipe. Make sure you have
Okay.
all of your jars. That would be my recommendation for you specifically.
Okay. And I know I have another question for you, but I want to get Leanne's answer, and I'm gonna come back to you for this question.
Okay.
The easiest thing to can is water. So therefore, if you're just scared about the process, fill up some jars with 1 inch headspace of water and just enjoy the process.
Mhm.
And then use that for emergencies for like plants or whatever. But then you got the idea of just doing the steps. Then I would say, what do you like to eat? That's when you should learn slowly it. I think pressure canning is easy. So I'm going to tell you chicken and rabbit's going to be easy for you to can, and your stocks are easy to can. Stock, like beef and chicken, it only takes like 25 minutes in the canner. Just like green beans. I think green beans are easy as long as somebody's already picked them and washed them and snapped them for you. Then you just throw them in a jar and throw hot water over them, and they're good to go in the canner. So that's what I would start with.
So, canning water is in this book.
No, it's probably not. But you know what? But I'm just saying, just if you're scared to death to do anything, canning water, you're not going to waste anything.
Yeah,
Just it'll get your feet wet.
it will. And I saw Andell say she canned water too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So,
Hey guys, I'm gonna jump in for just a second. All right, I want to say y'all guys are awesome.
That is my husband, not my
Hi,
voice.
Bobby.
And I really appreciate y'all. I am excited now to get started with this. And I can tell by the way my wife looked that she's ready to. That fear is gone.
I know I'm like,
But I'm going to go get my sexy on, but I will be listening. But I want to thank y'all. So
now I'm
You're
ready.
welcome. You're welcome.
I'm glad you guys are over the fear.
Yes, me
So
too.
I do have a question for Grace and Fire because I was so impressed when I saw this because I had no clue it exists, of course. When I asked last night, what um what supplies should a new canner or what should we be purchasing? You know, I know we need jars, lids, all these good things, a canner, of course, but something you showed me that I can get off Leanne's Amazon list.
Mm-hmm.
A utensil set.
I love that.
Yes. And this is actually mine that I am going to be replacing some of my tools. And inside the utensil set is a funnel. And I'm going to show this item in a second. Is the jar lifter. Okay, so now that I've got a jar in front of me, I'm going to show you how this works. See, I'm holding it like that, and it helps you get your jars in and out of the canner safely. Okay.
And you don't want, even when you put them in, you don't want to put your hands on them no matter what.
Oh, you will burn yourself, and you will learn
Yeah.
very quickly. You need your jar lifter. They are fabulous. I have another one. Actually, this is my third one. I have one that I like a little bit better than this one. It's got more grip to it for me. But I love my jar lifter. And then you also need your bubble remover and your headspace tool. That's the name of it. And it's going to be really hard to see. But so this is your bubble remover. There will be bubbles you need to remove out of your jar. Let's see if I can tilt it right. Very carefully. It's hard to see, but every size of headspace from 1/4 inch all the way up to 1 inch headspace is written on each of these little notches. And the reason you want to do it, let me grab one of these jars. When you go to can your recipe, it will tell you that, I apologize, I knocked over something. Okay, so whenever you can, it'll tell you, okay, your food needs to be 1/4 inch headspace. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your little tool and you're going to go to 1/4 inch and you're just going to set your little tool like that. Whoops. And then the food will just literally sit like right at the tip right here. And then I'll know, okay, I've got 1/4 inch. You want to use this tool because if you use a different brand of jars, 1/4 inch might look a little different. Now in the ball books, it'll tell you this ring is 1/4 inch. You know what I mean? And then like this is 1 inch. Great. But if you're using a different brand, it might be off. I am always recommending this. 11 years into canning, and this is like my tool, and I get very frustrated if I can't find my tool. I have 3 of these now. So you've got to have one of these.
Yeah, don't be messing with my debubbler.
Yeah, don't forget to be debubble. That's I'm having a hard time speaking. Yes, you need to debubble. Very important. But it's also very important to know what your headspace is and to follow that, because if you do not do your headspace correctly, you have messed your recipe up and it will not be as fresh. I'm trying to think of the right words. Help me out, Leanne and Tony. It won't. It's not.
I was reading the chat. Sorry.
Okay.
Like with the headspace, it's one of those steps that you might screw up and it won't seal properly.
It will, yeah, you'll lose.
It
So
messes
again,
up the
back to the
quality.
tested, yeah, the quality, the tested, everything will be out of whack. It will be not correct. So
Yeah.
So always
it's
use
kind of
this
like going
tool.
back to what we were talking about, with the sugar thing. If you just choose not to do it, or if you choose to change the headspace, you're gonna mess up that recipe. So
And the other thing that I like what Mouse Toes was saying, and because I do, it's just an unconscious thing, but I never think to verbalize it. I never do this, but I love the fact that she pointed it out. When you wash your jars and you sterilize them,
Don't put your
never
hands in
do
them.
this. This is dirty now. Okay. Always use your tools. And I even go as
and
far as sterilizing my tools. Every bit of,
right,
like, all of my scoops that I'm going to use, all of everything goes right in the pot
yeah,
with my jars, and I sterilize those too because I want everything clean. My fingers don't go inside of here. And
yeah.
it was unconscious thought that I've always done for 11 years. And when she brought that out last night, I'm like, oh yeah, I need to make sure I tell people don't do this because that you're adding germs now.
Well, yeah, you've defeated the whole thing. You just sat there and spent 10, 15, 20 minutes sterilizing everything, getting it clean, and then there you are putting chicken juice all over the jars. Doesn't make
Exactly.
any sense.
Exactly. And you know what? When these things come out of the jar or out of the canner and you've sterilized them, they are hot. You're not going to be wanting to touch these jars on the inside or outside anyhow. So
Yeah.
you want to be using this.
So, Cena Renee is asking a question about whether to pressure can or water bath certain items such as green beans, onions, potatoes. So, I mean, I can almost answer this question now. I'm in day 2 of
Take it,
canning.
girl. Take it.
All I can say is read the book. And I know in the back of this book, if I go to onion or sweet onion or green bean or potato, this book will tell me how to pressure or steam or water bath can. Am I correct?
Yes.
You are correct, but to answer her question specifically, those are low acid foods that need to be pressure canned.
Good job, Sherry. Good
Yes,
job.
very good.
I was gonna
Very
bring it
good.
back around to y'all because I'm
You-
here to learn too. But yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I'm giving credit where credit's due.
I think I have to say this. I think what I appreciate and have no problem helping you and Bobby out, you guys are engaged in the conversation. You're a part of the conversation, and you're actually retaining the information. So I don't feel like it's wasted on anything. You guys are picking up what we're laying down, if I can be just that direct. And
Oh yeah.
that's what makes it worthwhile to do.
Yeah. I like my biggest thing is I love making things. I've learned over the years how to make everything. Soaps, cleaning products, everything. So if I had to refrain from the store, I could live off 1 acre property. So I love making things and I love sharing those things I make with my friends and family. But I want to definitely make sure when I give my friend that guava jelly or jam from my own yard in my house that I can promise myself and her that or him that they won't get sick. So yeah, I'm definitely paying attention and taking notes.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll be able to play this over and over again
Yes.
on
Yes,
everybody's
yes.
channel.
Yep.
Yep. So I
You know
know
what? You know
this
what
is
my goal is for you.
go ahead.
My goal is for you next. You start putting on canning videos. That would be awesome.
I think we can get there at least in the next month or two. I am going to work closely with Grace and Fire and Middle Night. I mean, with you all and get this going. But I am definitely on a better path than I was even a week ago.
Good.
Can I ask a question about you wanting to start tomato sauce canning? Do you have a KitchenAid stand mixer?
Um, I should have gotten one Monday for my anniversary, but I will get one really soon. Say it
Okay.
loud so my husband can hear.
She needs a KitchenAid stand mixer
She needs a KitchenAid stand mixer.
because there's an attachment where you can just put the tomatoes in at the top and sauce comes out the bottom, and then you reduce it. Then you need the tray that comes along with it too. And I'll make sure to add that to my Amazon store so you can have a link to it.
Please
But there's
do.
also hand crank ones. I bought one for 50 cents at an auction. I use that just in case, electricity's down and I got to do something. But yeah, you have to have a food mill or even those antique sieves. Yeah. So I just wanted to make sure you're on the same page with that.
All right.
No, you don't. Hold on a second.
Well,
I
that's
can use a food processor. I can use a fine mesh sieve, and I can drain all that out and stop it from going. You don't have to do it that way.
I didn't recall the
way
book saying food processor.
You could get a food mill, and then, but when I have a food mill. I actually have one right here, and you'll be sitting here doing this for a while.
Yeah. To answer this question, you have to reduce your sauce after you make the sauce. It has to be boiling before you even put it in the jar to hot pack it, which the book would tell you.
So, all right, y'all. We coming up on 2 hours and 15 minutes, and I do appreciate, but I want to give y'all a break so we can. I got a bunch more questions for, of course, Saturday and next week, because the plan is to carry on this Canon series for at least 3 more weeks, so we can make sure we got it down packed, safe, and proper Canon. So, what will you all tell the newbie canners, or what is your advice for any canner? Newbie, old school, I know what I'm doing. I don't need to hear this. Let us know.
Well, I think for the newbies, I want you not to be afraid. I started my canning journey not on YouTube, looking up videos, because I was not interested in YouTube. I actually went and grabbed a ball book, and that's how I started. And that is my first canner back there. I wanted that to be here. I want you to know that if I can do this, you can do this too. But stick with the book. These recipes are tested. As long as you follow them, they are safe. Don't just go looking for some person who says, hey, I got this canning recipe and it's good because I said it's good. Look for somebody who's actually, these companies that have tested these recipes, because you want to have foods that are good for your family. I am a caregiver for somebody with complex medical conditions. Why would I want to give my loved one something that is going to make him even more sick? I want you to let that sink in. And I'm canning. Think about that for a second. Why would I want to complicate his life more? Use the books that are tried and true. That's my recommendation. And take a breath. Don't panic. I mean, okay, I panicked with my pressure canner, but I made it. I'm still here, and I'm a pressure canning nut. Okay, but just relax and enjoy the process. It is fun. Leanne made a point that I'm going to be doing. I actually shared it with my husband. Put a crock pot meal on when you can. My husband was like, "Oh yeah, crock pot night." So we'll be doing crock pot nights. A lot of them. That is a great tip from Leanne.
All right, Tony, you are next.
I would definitely piggyback on everything Glenda said, because she's spot on. I think I'm here to tell you, and Leanne will confirm this. First time I pressure canned, I was on the phone panicking. Yeah, what do I do? What do I do? What do I? We all go through it. You just have to make the dive into it. So the flip, not the flip side, but the addition to that, is don't go out and spend three, four, five, six, seven, $800 worth of equipment. Figure out what you want to do first. That will determine which canner you need. If you can't afford the more expensive one, try to do the less expensive one and keep it the water bath canning stuff. If you need to go into, you want to do meats or whatever, then obviously you have to do the pressure canner. But I think it's dependent on you what you're going to make. It's dependent on you what you're going to eat, and it's dependent on you how you're going to do that. So just sit back, think about it, give yourself a little time, find a recipe that fits the taste profile you're looking for, and then just go with it. Do a small batch, do a little bit at a time. You don't have to sit there and put up 2 years worth of food. Don't even try it. Do a small batch, little, see how you like it. I like Leanne's recommendation earlier. Try water the first time until you say, okay, this isn't that bad. And then you can move into something else. So that's what I do.
All right, Lee Ann from Mennonite Farmhouse.
So you want to learn how to can, and you want to eat what you can, but you just can't think, oh, I need the best spaghetti sauce out there. So you're going to just you're just going to go Google spaghetti recipes and think you can it. No, you need to follow tested, safe recipes. That was something I had a problem with, and I had to learn that I just couldn't borrow somebody's grandmother's recipe, because I found out after I canned it, it had a gallon of paste in it. that it was dense, and I learned that that was dangerous. So don't think of a food, then want to can it, and figure out you have to find the source that's tested and safe. I think that's what most newbies don't understand, and I want to prevent you from having to throw food out. And make sure you start with a crock pot meal before you even start canning, and keep your surfaces clean, and you got this. Even if I have to hold your hand, you got this.
Most definitely. We got this. And I appreciate y'all for helping us and teaching us and keeping us in this book, in these books. We will keep hammering at this, and we'll have more questions. I know that Time to Grow will have a similar panel, but a little different on Saturdays. So it's definitely an important conversation we need to have, especially in the homesteading and gardening community, because we grow so much of our own food, and we need to learn more than just dehydrating and freeze drying and freezing. So canning is definitely a great way to go. We just need to make sure we are doing it correct. So y'all check out Mennonite Farmhouse. Go back to her first video. Yeah, start there. Check out Kettle Kitchen. They jamming it up June over there. So it's gonna be a whole month of action-packed fun over there. And Grace and Fire. She is my amazing, crazy chicken mama, soil sister. I appreciate y'all. This was great, and I look forward to every Wednesday hanging out with y'all. So I'm gonna drop y'all down and say goodbye, and then I'll catch y'all in the back. Oh, go ahead, Tony. You still muted.
My fault. You have people in here still. Maybe you could throw questions out that maybe we didn't get answered, so that in the next session we might be able to tackle some of the questions as well.
Okay. So you saying they can drop questions in the chat, or they can just leave questions in the comments section.
In your comments. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll catch up with y'all in a second. So I'm gonna drop everyone down. So it's just me. All right, y'all. Soil family. This was absolutely amazing. I've learned so much. I am now not as afraid as I was at first, but what made me so comfortable is knowing that I have an amazing community that will support my husband and I through this next journey of homesteading, which we all need. So y'all make sure y'all grab y'all balls because it's canning season. So leave your questions in the comments and we will get to them on next Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on Black's Tropical, Grace and Fire, Mennonite Farmhouse, and Kettle Kitchen. But do not forget that we have another Canon. What is it? Can We Talk? Over on Time to Grow on Saturdays. So you don't have any balls? Me neither. So we appreciate y'all. Y'all have a blessed day. And you know me. Don't let nobody steal your joy.